The more you try to keep me down and keep my head above the water, you can never hold me down. The more you try to block me out, that's where I kick the wall down. You can never hold me back. The more you try to put me out, the more I'll be blazing, it's too hot. The more you try to put me in the dirt, increase my worth, the expert. You see the hunger in the eyes of a survivor. Swallowed my pride, washed down with some saliva. Reinvented my whole life, mental MacGyver. One door shut, another open up wider. Listen, battle drums in the distance, moving with enough force like army tank pistons. Pray for the strength of Jah to fight resistance. Fight mode, shields up, moving with resilience.
The strength of 1,000 lion and the strength of 1,000 giant. Please stay strong. Please stay strong. With the strength of 1,000 elephant and the strength of 1,000 tiger, we stay strong. We stay strong.
Hey everybody, it's Casey with Pinecase. Tonight is it's not a regular Tuesday, although it's always blessed around here. We have the one and only Wrekonize. When we talk about stories of where people have been and where people have come, and then where people kind of take back what's theirs, you are the definition of an innovator when it comes to hip hop, an innovator when it comes to the music scene, and you did it transparently for all of us to be able to absorb, to take notes, to enjoy. And so from our side over here, looking in as a consumer, as a bystander and a music lover, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight.
Man, thank you. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's good to be here. I love that. Thank you. I've been in it for a minute. I've been in the game. So the cool part about being in what you do for a long time is that you can and especially if you don't experience like meteoric success in the beginning, you have to really grind to get to where you're at. It makes it very easy to appreciate, not take anything for granted. So I do appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Wow, it's so neat. Like the story is wild. And when we go back, I had the privilege of hanging out tonight, getting my feet wet and appreciating it, not from a newcomer, because I've known you always. But because of social media, you really get to see the knit and the grit and the behind the scenes, and you really take us on that ride. And I feel I feel like I know this guy before he's hanging out in the over here at Pinecase. And so I appreciate you for doing that for us, because I think it's really important, to get the stories out there, to show that we're just regular folks. And then also to be man, all you need is a couple of tools that you can acquire and you can achieve stardom and greatness.
There's a lot of strategies that go into being an artist and artist of any kind, but especially from my experience in the music business, they really curate and mold your personality in the business to acquire certain image, right? And that's always been something I kind of struggled with, because I was never really good at presenting an image or putting on an image. There's certain artists that they walk in the room and people will be like, that's a star. And I heard people using that term when I was growing up, and I was like, I don't know if that could ever be me. I don't really walk in the room and own the room like that. That's just not my vibe. I am a people person. I like to meet people, talk to people, and vibe and be righteous and cool with everybody. But I don't know if I'm going to walk in and command the room, but over the years, you see artists rise up and be very mysterious. And I always envy that in a way. You got your Prince and your Michael Jacksons or whatnot, and your Kendrick Lamars now, where Kendrick doesn't do social media, and you go, oh man, that is so cool. He's so guarded and keeps everything very close to the chest and allows people to interpret it however they want. That's dope. And he doesn't really have to go on social media actively. But at the end of the day, for me, I'm just that's just not me. I just rather share and be cool, chopping it up with everybody. I don't know. I'm just I like to be in the mix. So that's just kind of the path I go organically.
It's so funny because there's, I've seen you with no hair. I've seen you with some hair. I've seen you, all these things. And I was like, this dude can do anything. This dude can do anything. Thanks for bringing it home for us regular folks, because you can do anything. The fact that you never really felt that way is crazy, because looking in, I'm because you just own that so hard, it seems obvious to me that no matter what you were going to be doing, it would work out, right? That confidence just seems to flow through you no matter what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I've been obsessed for a long time. I'm 41. I've been like really, really like chasing music like professionally since like I was like 18, 19. So like basically half my life, just a little bit more. And then even before that, like my family was into the arts and into my parents were into music. So like even before that, I was still like had my focus on music. I just wasn't like driving for it like as a career. But I've been doing it so long that it's just allowed me to get really comfortable and just I've been obsessed with it for so long that I think a lot of times what ends up preceding me is more like the drive and the catalog and how long I've been around and some of the things I've done rather than like that energy I'm talking about from before, like that superstar
Right.
energy that people have. Like, luckily, like if you work hard enough for long enough, like your body of work will present that rather than you have to walk in and have the flyest
Absolutely.
jacket on or whatever, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you got all the receipts, like all the receipts for
Definitely
that.
been around for a minute. Between my solo stuff and Mayday, we've done a lot of work, and it's an interesting time right now that you're catching me at because we're 2 years off of our long-term label deal. Yeah, about 23, about to be. This is the third year. Since we were on Strange Music with Tech Nine and them in the Midwest for 11, 12 years, I think it was, and it was a very long, big like we did a lot of work in that period of time. So now we've been recalibrating since, and the business continues to evolve and change so much that it's been it's been a struggle, and it's been interesting to see like it's like especially in my middle age how it's like a test of will. Like, are you really about this life still? Do you really still want to be?
Right.
And I'm finding myself like Bruce Lee in the room of mirrors, like, oh, I don't know, am I? So it's been an interesting time. Like it's refreshing after being in the mix for so long to find yourself up against the challenge where you're like, oh, I need to double down and make sure that I'm still about this.
Well, first of all, congratulations on both of those things. Obviously, Strange Music is not a joke. Like, there's you couldn't find anybody for an independent record label. Like, that is definitely at the very top. You don't have to go very far to figure that out. So,
For sure.
Shout out to all that. But even more so, congratulations for being able to find a way to. I know it's hard to then pivot and go off and like trust that that's going to work. And we all believe in ourselves, but like that's a big thing to be like, okay, I need to figure out a way to navigate over here to really push this like for myself. So congratulations on that even more so maybe than
Appreciate
the
that.
Strange Music thing. Yeah, man.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a difficult decision to make because we appreciate and enjoyed everything that we went through at Strange. Like, we took none of that for granted, even at the last few years when the business kind of changed a lot from when we first entered it. It was like nothing but love coming out of there, nothing but love and respect for and admiration for Tech Nine and Travis who own the company. And we learned a lot there. We had a bunch of amazing experiences, met a lot of amazing people. And then it just came to that point where you just feel like, all right, the record business, even when you still, get along and love the people you're working with, it's still the record business, and it's not really in the art set up in the artist's favor. So if you want to, go to the next level or graduate, you have to kind of get set out there on your own and take the risks and bet on yourself and then own your music so that you can give it to your kids. And that was kind of the goal that we wanted to do.
I think that might have been the sweetest thing that I heard today. I mean, obviously, like I said, I've listened to your music for a little while, but today specifically was one of those days where I want to make sure I got like, my ducks in a row and whatever and hit on those things. And I heard you say that, like, I wanted to make sure that I had that so that I could give it to my kids when I'm gone. And I was just like, yeah, that has to be like that must be the goal for so many musicians. Like, that must be the thing. Like, you want to get the record deal to make sure that you can pay the bills, because that's, arguably maybe the easier way to go about it up front. But a lot of musicians, a lot of artists, they leave this world and don't own any of that stuff. And so for you to say that, I was just like, yeah, that's a dad for sure. Like, I know exactly what you mean by that feeling, because there's a more so than ego, there's like pride with that, right? That's your body of work to hand down. And it was just like, man, yeah.
Yeah, and it's tough because the record industry, the record labels make it so easy, because they fund everything, and they make it so that you don't have to take risks and you don't have to take hits. And it's very favorable, like, to go through that. You just don't see as much money come back, and you don't ultimately own the records for the next 30 years or
right.
or more.
100 years, yeah.
Whatever, however the deal is worked, depending on how good or bad your deal is.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, eventually, like, it just feels like the industry, the way it is now, is set up more than ever for independence, for you to own your own stuff. You can go direct to any of these distributors and put yourself online in 10 seconds. So like, it just feels like the game is set up now more than ever for artists to go out there. And what I will say is, like, we kind of get to live the best of both worlds, because we made up a huge amount of our audience that we currently play to today from Strange Music. Like, we wouldn't have met a lot of some of our most diehard fans and friends now today if it wasn't for the influence of Strange and Tech and Trav and all the work they did before. So we got to go through that system, put out a bunch of amazing work with them, and now we get to graduate and go do our own thing. And it comes with a whole set of new challenges. You know, you spend a lot of money, the money doesn't come back very quickly. The music business is very geared to not really make money off the music anymore, which is a weird feeling if you've been in it for a while.
It's like wild. Merch all day long. It's the weirdest thing. I had a conversation the other day, and it's like, someone said to me, business and music don't go together. And I'm like, well, they do. Like, they do. It's just that now we're in a place where we don't really appreciate the music for like the, you know, the albums, the collection of work, that piece of artwork. As an individual, we used to get, you know, 10 or 20 songs. You know, we paid $20 like that, at least in my time. That's kind of what it looked like, right? And we'd get like the artwork in the CD, and it was like a whole experience. You know, you had to collect your little monies to get the bus to get downtown to HMV or whatever, right? So it was like you paid for that. And now, I mean, I guess I don't even think that the kids, it's like you just get the merch, you get, you know, a hat, a t-shirt, whatever. The concerts aren't even really, I shouldn't say aren't as important, but it has a lot more to do with everything surrounding you and who you are as an artist and all the things that you can kind of like piece off the sides more than selling the music itself. What is it like I mean, because you didn't start in an industry like that, although YouTube is definitely kind of where you started. Like, I don't want to say that for certain, but you kind of utilized YouTube like right off the bat.
I definitely, I've always been like I'm super into technology in general. My dad's a singer-songwriter, has been like my entire life, and he's always been into technology. So like when I was a teenager, he lived, when my parents separated when I was 7, and not to run you through the whole, like, you know, the whole diary, but
we're here to listen.
But to get that backstory of how I got exposed to it was my dad moved out of Miami when I was 7, and he moved to New York. So for every summer and Christmas for the next 5 years, from 7 to 12 or so, 7 to 12 or 13, I was in New York. So I was getting experience, like big city experience, like meeting cool people. My dad had some really cool, like he was a tennis pro, so he taught like some pretty high high-end clientele, and we just got to like see a lot of stuff. And at the time, my pops was doing music, and my first experience of writing a song was me and my sister asking my dad, like, hey, so how do you write a song anyways? You know, about probably 7 and 9 years old. And or 7 and 5, actually, my sister was at the time. So my dad said, oh, I'll show you how to write a song. So he basically took us and we wrote a song together, put the lyrics together, and then he rented the studio, because this is way before home studios. And we went to the studio and recorded it. And I can vividly remember like recording the song, going through the whole experience, which was very like core memory for me. And then my pops moved to Oakland when I was 13. So from 13 to 18, I was going to Oakland on the West Coast like twice a year. And he was working, him and his girlfriend at the time, they had a video production company. So I got to like go to the office with them and hang out and look at like, you know, all the gear and the computers, and they had an Avid editing suite. And I was like, oh, what's that? And they're like, oh, you could use it if you want, like film your summer here in Oakland, and you can edit a video at the end. So I was like, oh, they put me on the Avid. I got to learn how to edit a little bit. So cool. You know, so like I got experiences. Like my dad was taking a Photoshop class at SFSU, so I got to go. Somehow he was the TA, so like that's how he was like he was hacking the system. My pop's really good at hacking the system.
Resourceful,
he was like,
dude.
how do I take this class but not really have to fully pay for it? You know, like so he went to the teacher and told the teacher like, hey, I'll be your intern. I'll do whatever you need and got whatever. And just let me be sitting on the class. And then when I was in town, the teacher also agreed to let the kids come, which I thought was pretty dope because we were pretty young, you know, like I was just a young teen. But so I got to sit in on that. Point being is I'm very and have always been super into technology. And as my music experience developed, how that technology sits in and cooperates and enhances the music. So all these years going along, whether it be social media or different technology that actually you make the music with, different like hardware, or now going into like artificial intelligence and things like all that stuff interests me a lot. So I've always been playing with it, tinkering with it, and then whenever possible, like, oh, how can I work this into what I'm doing? How does this fit into that universe? You know,
You're like, we're going with it. Yeah, because a lot of people
Yeah.
fight it, right? Like even just going from like, vinyl over to like digital, like people have been fighting it the whole way. So to hear that you're just like, nah, we're just gonna do it, like I think that that works in your benefit 100%. Well, it comes out in quality. Obviously that's a strong opinion, but it comes out in quality for a quality experience for us. You know what I mean? Because we get to like hear the things that we're not going to hear anywhere else when people are like really into like finding ways to do things a different way. And so it's neat that you've like been interested in that for so long. Shout out to Pops for like bringing you in from the beginning, because that kind of stuff is like, man, that's
he
where it's at.
you know, like my time with him was definitely quality over quantity, since I only
Yeah.
saw him twice a year. But we, you know, this is pre FaceTime, pre cell phones and all that, like, so we had to make it like impactful, or he had to make it impactful for us. And I picked up a lot from him. He's a real wise dude. So I admired him so much, and watching what he did is part of what got me into wanting to do music. My mother was a backup singer in his band when they were growing up, and then she also was a backup singer in a separate band. So I had music examples, professional, like working music examples, no matter which parent I ended up being with. And yeah, that exposure was very helpful for me to get me like going early.
Do you think though that like clearly it didn't scare you away from it, but were they ever like, hey, listen, like we know this industry well, like maybe get a trade? Like,
Yeah.
did they push you to like be an engineer, like behind the scenes first, so that way you could get that part of it before you did it? Because music, the industry, I mean, they know, right?
I for sure got that conversation from my dad. My mom never gave me that conversation because my mom never really chased it as a career. She just did it really for fun. And like she gigged and made money off of it, but she never was like, I'm gonna be a like I'm gonna be in this band. This is my dream. She just did it because she loves music and she's a performer at heart. So she has that bug. But she never chased it, so she never felt burned by the industry or anything like that. But my dad definitely felt that. He felt the struggle of trying to break into the industry. He felt like, it was just a cold game in general.
Yeah.
So when I was like, approaching my like 18, 19, talking about, yeah, I'm gonna record an album and this, that, and the third, my pops gave me the speech. He was like,
Yeah.
well, this is a tough. He didn't want to see me get my heart broken, which I get as a dad now. I can feel that. Like
It'd break his heart, man.
Yeah, and you want to prep your kid like, yo, this shit is hard. It's not easy. So it's like you have to prepare them to know that it's not a walk in the park, which I'm appreciative that he did that, but he didn't do it to a degree where it was like, dissuading me from doing it. He just wanted to really like warn me that it's no bed of roses,
Yeah. It's just real out here in the
Oh,
street.
yeah, it's no joke. And that I would argue that kind of prep that he gave me was helpful, because whenever music's been like, music business in particular has been really like terrible for me at moments, or very what do you call it? Like just a negative, I guess. It had a negative like effect on me. I've always been able to shake it off pretty quick to be like, yo, at the end of the day, like I got into this because I love the art, and the art will be here regardless of what happens with the business. If I make a song tomorrow and I never show it to anyone, I'll still get joy out of that. And like, that is what it gets me out of bed still, to think, yo, tomorrow I could make something amazing. And showing it to people is of course great, and fires off a different part of your brain and gives you like gratification in a different way. But I could live the rest of my life just making songs and listening to them myself if I had to. You know what I mean? And that's like a good baseline to start from.
I think, well, I mean, it goes into everything that we talk about over here. And it's like music is our drug of choice. It's like you get that dopamine high from it. And if I think it's a beautiful thing that you have that as an experience, because some people lose that, being in the industry, or like they start off that way and they're like, this is everything. This is my high. This is my, my joy, my pain, my sorrow, my everything. And then, as somewhere along the way, they're just like, yeah, man, music still is that for me when I around it, but if there's moments or they've like kind of lost a little bit, or jaded. The word I'm looking for is jaded.
That's the perfect word to describe it. Yeah.
So it's cool that I mean, I guess you're only 41. You're not. I mean, we're not, pop age yet. So I guess there's still time for that. But
I've seen that beauty turn into bitterness many times before over the years. I've seen a lot of homies come and go in music.
Mhm.
I've seen a lot of people like either retire or quit, like, yo, forget this, I'm out of here. And my thing was always like, even announced retirements in music, I always find, and I got a homie going through this right now. Shout out to
Okay.
Murs from California. Like Murs, the hip hop legend, he's doing that right now. And even, I mean, I've mentioned this to him briefly before, but I've always believed like it's a dangerous thing to announce you're going to retire from the arts, because it's not like sports. Sports, you can retire because your body is basically telling you that you must retire. Whereas like music, you can write a song at 90. You could perform a really dope song at 90 if you so choose. So
Totally.
you know, you can go way longer than you can in sports. So I think like a lot of times when dudes be, not to name any names, but rappers have been like, yo, at 30 something being like, I'm going to retire. And I'm like, what? Get the fuck out of here. You got to be kidding me. And then every time, it's not to toot my own horn or anything, but every time I'm like, he'll be back.
He'll be back.
He'll be right back. And they always come back, going back to
Yeah.
Jay-Z, your Logics, your whoever. They always come back, because once you're bit by that bug, like it's been very rare that I've seen people go, I'm out of here, and then never return. Because that creative energy has to go somewhere. At some point you got to return to expel that. Otherwise you go crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Was that something that you used like when you were younger? Like is writing music or making music in general like something that you turned to like as a kid? I mean, we all go through heavy pressure through our teen years and all that stuff, but is that something that you've always kind of like leaned on for comfort and whatnot?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was making like mixtapes with my neighbor when we were like must have been like 4th or 5th grade, so like 10 or 11 years old, maybe a little younger. We were making mixtapes pretending to be radio DJs. So like it kind of always morphed. It wasn't always like what I do now. It started as just like putting tapes together, compiling songs off the radio, recording stuff like that. And then as I got a little older, I started to get like wrap my mind around writing songs. But it wasn't rap. It was like, I'm just gonna try and sing because I saw my mom singing, I saw my dad singing.
Mhm.
And then when I got to like 13, got to my teens, and I got introduced to hip hop, that like ruined it for me in terms of singing, because at that time, when I was a teenager, singing wasn't cool like it is now. Like now everyone's like, yeah, I can sing and rap, I'm Drake, I'm whoever.
Totally.
That now, like for us back then, it was like MCs shunned you if you even tried to sing,
Absolutely.
So it made me completely shut down on that facet of it, and I was like, no, I'm not singing, I'm just gonna rap. Like I'm gonna be real. So I turned into rapping. In middle school, I read an article in The Source about Prodigy from Mobb Deep, rest in peace, who he kept a composition book with him. And they were talking about this composition book that he always carried with him, that he would just be able to write in whenever he felt the urge to write a verse or whatever it was. And I was in freshman year of high school, maybe. I was about to graduate from middle school. I think it was freshman year of high school. And I heard that and I was like, man, I need to get a book and start putting my stuff together. And I got a composition book, the same exact make, and just started writing verses in it. And that was
like the black and white one? Like
yep.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the one. I still got it somewhere in here. I started writing verses in there, and that was kind of like the beginning of like really committing to like turning it into something that I'm gonna like be serious about. And then I kind of flirted with that for the next like 2 or 3 years during high school. And then when I really got my mind blown was I lived in Hollywood, which is like about 20-30 minutes north of Miami. And so I was in Hollywood, and at that time, Hollywood, no one did music. Like it was very, very secluded in terms of artists, like especially rappers. It was like at our entire high school of however many thousands kids, there was like 3 of us that rapped. It was very, very just people weren't doing that for some reason. And I got a flyer when I was in high school, and it was for a b-boy jam in Miami. So 30 minutes, 40 minutes away. Yeah. And I was like, okay, back then that was a big deal to go make that 40-minute drive when I barely had my license or whatnot. So I was like, okay, we're going to go down there. We're going to check it out. And we went, And not only did we see the elements of hip hop being displayed, your b-boy battle, your graffiti, your DJ battle, then the MC battle portion came on, and I was like, what is this? This is amazing. Like, and I was already writing raps, I was into hip hop, but I had never seen like the Coliseum aspect of it, and the aggression was also amazing because I'm a real passive person. I don't fight. I'm not like I don't get in people's faces, none of that. I'm real chill. So to see like you're able to use the art and use like put some of that aggression out was just like mind blowing to me. And on top of that, Miami had an artist scene at even for kids of our age. There were crews there, they had groups, they were pressing their own vinyl, they were making CDs, they were doing stuff. And to me, coming from Hollywood, this was like, what is this? This is amazing, you know? And that was like what really blew the lid off it for me. Going to Miami at that time, going to the MC battle, seeing how people got down, seeing this whole artist community, that's when I really clicked in and was like, yo, I want to plug into this and I need to get serious, you know? And that was the push to really start like releasing music and writing music, recording it professionally.
Man, that's amazing. I just picture you like going in there and just seeing the culture for the first time, right? Because it's like that's a whole culture in itself. And I mean, East Coast is always going to be different than the West Coast and all these things, but there's obviously like a through line in the hip hop culture as a whole. But if you only had this, I don't want to call it a small experience up to that point, but if you only had like a limited experience to that point, the stimulation and like sensations that must have been happening to walk into that, man, am I glad that you did that, because you know what? Your music is it's been a long time since I actually picked up a thesaurus or felt the need to Google thesaurus and like look for some things. And your music did that for me today. And I was like, man, yes. Cause I also
I love that. That's fire.
Yeah. Like it's been a minute and I was like, okay, I know what this word means, but I know that it can't be that easy. There's no way that he said all this cool shit and then like left it with that. So like, let me like, get into this for a second. So I appreciate that you had that experience, because again, for us, we get to experience those little pieces of that. Why is it important for you to be like a lyricist in there, or to like use double entendres, or to like, highlight like the wordplay and poetry aspect so much? Because it is at the forefront. Well, for me, that's the experience that I had with it.
Yeah.
Anyway. Like, why was that so important?
I mean, I had an interesting experience like coming into like hip hop as a listener. I at the time that I entered in, it was basically like the dawn of, or it was just slightly past the dawn of like the gangster rap era. So you had Biggie and you had you had Snoop on the West Coast, you had DMX really popping off slightly after that. So like I came into it kind of tuned into that, and that was all I kind of knew in the beginning. So I was like, yo, and it was amazing. I was 11, 12 years old being like, this Doggy Style album is amazing. And my mom was super, super open-minded. She bought me the Snoop record. Like, she was real cool.
Yo, like, what a mom.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. She was real, very cool and very like liberal about all that stuff. And so like I got introduced to that part then. But even then, what that would be kind of considered like the commercial level hip hop at that time. But even then, that level of hip hop was very lyrical. And then slightly after that, I kind of realized I had missed a whole like era before that. And I had missed some very like vital, crucial years. So I had to go back and do my homework and be like, oh, who's De La Soul? Like, who's Tribe Called Quest? Like, oh, who are the Jungle Brothers? Like, and I had to kind of like go back and do my history lesson. And then I got like partnered up with a couple of homies that were a little bit older than me that were able to kind of school me on the golden era stuff. So I went back, and that was even more lyrical than the gangster stuff I was listening to. And that blew my mind. So then being like a fan of just like the poetry itself, lyrics in general, even before I got to hip hop, was always a big deal. So I just felt like that was what really drew me to it in general. And then it's been a struggle because when I was in my teenage years, in the early days, I had a very rigid mindset about it all. I was very like underground, and we got to be real, and man, all this stuff, as a lot of times you are when you got that teenage angst. But as I got older, I opened my mind a lot more in terms of like, I'm not as aversive to like club record or a song that's kind of silly or whatever, like, because I got a little bit more easygoing. And I also realized that you can be very complicated and complex in your lyric writing. And unfortunately, unless you get somebody who really wants to dig through it and get the thesaurus out, you're going to
Right.
miss connecting with that person. And that started to bother me in my like 30s. I was like, man, like I'll go to the show and like some of my homies will kick their verse and the crowd, or I'll see people performing and the crowd will be like, just kind of bobbing along. And then a verse that's not so jumbled or so condensed, so dense rather, the crowd is knowing every word and they're more connected to it because it's not going over their head.
Right.
So then since then I've been trying to struggle to like, how do you balance that? Like I want to say things, I want to hide, be cryptic in certain moments and I want it to be poetic, but at the same time I want it to have an emotional impact on people. So it's been a bit of a juggle since then because I try to keep it balanced so it's not too wordy and make you feel like you need the thesaurus, but at the same time it's not like boring either, and it's not too simple or too basic. So it's been a juggle to kind of keep both of those in check.
Well, I think you do a good job of it, to be honest. I mean, somebody that enjoys the bit of like the bit of the puzzle, like a little bit of lock and key stuff, you got to like dig through it a bit. Like I appreciate it, but it's still easy listening and palatable. I mean, I'm spoiled enough to have like a really wide variety of age ranges in my house, and there wasn't one person in my space today that didn't enjoy that experience. And so I think that you figured out a way to be, to play both of those really well. Like obviously there's been a bit of an evolution through your music. I mean, that happens with everybody, but the one thing that seemed to be consistent was like the appreciation or being the consideration for who's taking it in. Because I mean, obviously there's going to be projects, especially in like freestyles and stuff, where I would imagine that's more of I don't want to say it's more selfish, but you don't have to be as giving as you do when you're like, okay, I got to, we're going to put this single out, or we're going to drop this, this whole cut or whatever. Like it's got
I think there's certain projects definitely, like there's an EP series I do called Sunny Winter. I'm about to drop another one, but I've done 3 of them. And that one is one that I go into going like, all right, I'm not going to think about who's listening to this. This one is just for me. And like, if you pull something out of it, great. But this is just kind of like I attack it without thinking about it too much. And freestyles are like that too. I'm just going to rap really good and just, cool. See you on the other side.
Totally.
I think over the years, what I've tried to do is treat it like my affinity for movies. And because I'm a big movie head, and movies, it's funny, people don't really equate them. A lot of times people have real rigid views about music and not as rigid about movies. And I always thought it should be a little bit closer together. Like one day you might want to watch, something very serious, dark and brooding. And then the next minute you want to watch something completely ridiculous and silly and whatever. And then the next day you might watch something that makes you cry. And those different moods should be able to be explored in music as well, without like handcuffing the artist. No, you're the happy guy, or no, you're always the sad guy, or no, you're the lyrical guy, or no, you're the, whatever it is. So like, I always try to keep it varied and be like, yo, we're all pretty dynamic human beings, I would say. So at times you just want to go explore it. And the cool part about it, well, the con rather first, is that sometimes you're going to fire a dart out that is just not somebody's vibe. And it took me years to get comfortable with that, to be like, yo, this is not for you, or this is not for me, or whatever it is. And then the fun part about it, though, the pro is that when you vary up the attack and the approach and the subject matter on these songs, and then you poll the room, what's your favorite track? Everyone doesn't go track number 1. Like it's like 1, 5, 7, 9, 10, 11. I'm like, cool, dope. Then it's perfect. Like, you feel like, I don't know. I just like that approach better. And that reaction is dope. And you might not get everyone piling on that hit record, which is number 1, but you touched everyone in the room almost with the whole project, and everybody's got their own personal favorite.
You know what? I never thought about movies like that. And it actually kind of bothers me because I feel that way. Movies have all this space, or all other entertainment actually has that space. But yeah, we really do shove people into genres heavy. Even like when I was posting about this, I was like, I got to stop saying underground. Find a different word, man. Come on. And so, I guess we do that as consumers, and like the industry just like does that. It's weird that we allow other other things to have a little bit more space. you know, but then some people go too far out of it. Like Garth Brooks tried to do some weird shit a while back with some like long, you know what I'm saying? Like, and we're
Yeah.
like, no, no, no. Like there has to be this like consistent space. And so how did you find like who that was going to be in your music? Like how did you find, I don't want to say you became recognized because I think that you have probably always been like, you
I
know,
mean,
but
if you really go through and listen to like my catalog, you
mhm,
know, like you can hear. I always was very proud of like the evolution that you can hear from like the earliest stuff to now. Like my vocal like range changed a bit. I like sat into my voice more as I got older, and then my cadence, which a lot of people compliment a lot of times as being real like hypnotic and doesn't really like leave the pocket. When I was younger, like I didn't possess that ability. I didn't feel comfortable in the pocket like that. So it's definitely evolved just technically over the years as I've just kind of studied other musicians and just learned from people I've watched, and also just like found what felt comfortable to me and just practice another song. But I feel like I tried to always keep it parallel to what was happening to me as a person. So it's like I'm still the same person fundamentally, I guess, as I was as a teenager, but
mhm,
you just like you refine yourself, you know, learning all these things, making mistakes, you know, like even into your 20s, into your 30s, like you make these mistakes and you learn from them and things change. And I feel like the music has also been reflective of that, where it's like I've had people criticize me online before and say, like, yo, you don't make songs like such and such anymore. And I'm like, really? Because I feel like I do. But I mean, sorry if I don't, because I'm still looking at it through my lens. It's just that maybe my lens is a little different now. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So
20
it's like,
later. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, like
yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. Go listen to the old shit. I don't like, you know, so
Right.
it's hard because I still feel like me. But yeah, when I listen to older music, I see it feels sometimes jarring when you go like, whoa, wow, it sounds wild different. Like I just was looking at it from a different viewpoint at that time. And all I know is the times in my career where I stepped outside of that and did something because it wasn't like for organically for me, it was like we're gonna make a club song, or somebody was pressuring me to do something. I can
Mhm,
point those out to you on a map, like
yeah.
boom, like I know exactly when I was like that wasn't me, that wasn't me, that wasn't me. And it's like I would like to say it's probably not that many times, you know. It's like it's just key moments in my career as I was younger and I had my first couple record deals and people were, we should do this, and you know, and I'm also real polite and for the
Listen, you gotta
most
pay
part.
your taxes too, though, like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like, sometimes we just gotta do all of that to get to where we need to be, and, like, that's cool too. I think, like, you know, human to human, we can all appreciate that. You know what I mean? You to be, like, 100% you all the time because that's what it is. I mean, I don't know, I got electrical bills to pay and shit, like, I don't there's you know what I mean? Like, there's
I
times where I'm like,
I I
you
envy
know,
the artists.
probably
I envy the artists that I've seen that defiantly go like, no, I'm not doing that. This is me, and
mhm,
forget what you're talking about. And I especially when I was younger, even though I had a lot of angst and I was, you know, I was a little bit braver than I was, or a little bit more disrespectful, I guess, than I
mhm,
am now. But even then, my disrespectful wasn't really that bad. But
no.
I just I didn't want to be that person in the room. I never really had the like guts to be that person. If I disagreed with something, I would disagree with it and try my best to get it across that I disagreed. But I would often, especially when I was younger, go along with things and try to just figure it out. Let's make the best of it. What can we do? We making a club song? All right, cool. Let's try for it. Maybe we can make it good. Maybe I can make it my own. And I would go along with things. And yeah, the end result would be okay. It wouldn't be horrible, but it would be like
Right.
I just like I told you, like I could spot it a mile away to be like, oh, I remember that.
Yeah,
That
that
wasn't
one
me. Yeah, that
that
was
one,
something
yeah,
else, you
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah,
So
totally.
it's I do think that like evolving over the years and just getting real comfortable with like this is for me, this is how I do it, this is me, and being cool with people's reaction to that being positive or negative is like something that became paramount to like, okay, this is how I function now, and this is the best way to do it.
Was there times where like things would happen that because obviously like when we're talking about a catalog of work like this and like it's not even just the music, it's like, you know, the online because you do a lot of online content too. Like
Mhm.
you know, obviously there's gonna be times that aren't like sunshines and rainbows. Like how do you deal with some of those? I don't want to get too much into the negative, but just like, you know, like how do you deal with some of that stuff?
It's a learning curve for sure. It's on again like taking notes and being like, okay, being accountable, yourself holding yourself accountable to your mistakes. Early days of social media, I definitely had a problem where if I found myself having an issue or a problem with somebody, I've never been real confrontational, but I found like social media in the early days to be an outlet for that. And if you mix that in with alcohol, that was a very deadly combination for me. I got myself into trouble a few times where I got loose at the mouth, but it wasn't loose at the mouth. It was loose at the keys. And, this person did this, or I did, or being like passive aggressive online to people that knew, I know he's talking about me, like, and I had to make some sober apologies the next day after some of these things. And then there was a point where I was like, okay, I did that maybe a handful of times or whatnot, and was like, yo, this cannot continue. I had to make a conscious effort to be like, yo, when you're in a type of mood or whatnot, like sleep on it or go talk to the person or text them or call them or whatever, but don't go to Twitter, because that's not productive at all. So
No.
I had to learn, things like that. I also had to learn, you'll read 20 positive comments and be like, that's great. And just glaze over. Yeah, that's great. Love it. Great. And then you'll hit one person that says some negative thing and it sends you off on a whole firestorm where you just completely melt, and fold and be like, what? Oh, everything I just did was horrible. And I'm like, it took me a while to realize like the negative, like, is the one like outlier there. And somehow it made me change my whole entire mood instead of being like, wait, I just read 20 positives and then happened to run into one person that didn't dig it or whatever. So that was another like, seeing social media and online stuff as we've like, because when I first started doing music, that wasn't really there for us. So we kind of adapted. We're like the generation that adapted to it as it rose. So we had to learn how to get cool with comments online, and I know artists that don't never read the comments, and I know artists that read every single comment and everything in between, and you have to kind of find where you're comfortable. And over the years now, I've grown a real thick skin. It takes a lot to get me rattled. And even when I get rattled, I promise myself I'm going to sleep on it for 48 hours. And if I'm still upset, then I'll go confront the situation. And most of the time after 48 hours, I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'll just keep moving,
Good for you, man. Because like, man, that's freaking tough to do. And I think sleeping on it is like such a good example. You guys in the comment section, take notes, because there's a lot of people out here, like, it's easy to be a hothead over stuff. And if it was about the music, fine. If it was about the music, fine. You want to critique the music, but I don't know why people got to go after an artist and then just say things that have nothing to do with no music. Like, what does that have to do with anything? Like,
the first time I heard somebody say, like, whenever somebody comments on something about you, it's not really about you, it's about them. That had a big impact on me. I was like, wait, okay, hold up a second. Let me think about that. And like, then I started to see the patterns and be like, when I would go and like look up the people that were commenting things, like, I'm all for the record, I'm all for constructive criticism. If you come and you put like, it's an open forum for me. It's still my art at the end of the day, and whatever I say goes. But if somebody's like, yo, like, you know what, I thought that, that hook was kind of a little bit off, I would have maybe approached it differently. And I'll be like, really? Okay, well, I'm interested. Like, yeah, I'm cool with constructive, respectful criticism, because I would never walk into somebody's house and be like, yo, man, your place is a hot mess, man. What's wrong with you? You're a pig. But I could walk in and be like, oh, yo, there's something wrong here with this door. It's not opening. Can you help me? Being constructive is cool. And I'm cool with that. But you run into people that come swinging for you or say some disrespectful thing in the comments. And when I started to process it as like, oh man, I feel bad for them. They're just looking at it. It's about them. They just got some sort of hate in their heart for something that I did that triggered a reaction from something that they feel about from within. And that helped me be like, man, I'm not gonna, it'd be like fighting someone who's injured, you know what I mean? Or has some sort of mental issue. You're not gonna be like, yeah, like you're not gonna fight that person. You're gonna sympathize with that person. So now that's what I try to do. And I'm not 100% like in the clear, because sometimes people still rattle my cage, it's hard. But I would say I'm pretty close. I'm pretty close to absolute there. I'm like a 95%er at this point of keeping it peaceful.
Dang, that's impressive. Yeah. It's funny when you were saying that, I kept thinking, I definitely have somebody in my life who starts negative all the time. like, if they went to the pharmacy, like the bus driver, the pharmacist, the lady at the tip, like everyone is just shitty all the time. And like,
Mhm.
and it's just like, are you for real? Like, are you for like, don't bring that over here in my space. Like, take that back over there to your space. And I never really thought about it being like about them and not the experiences that they're having. I mean, I guess they have, but when you say it the way you say it, it's just like, yeah. It's got to be like, it must be exhausting to be that upset all the time or that miserable all the time. So like, that's just as much of a handicap as any other.
And that's why it turns into sympathy, because it's like, it's not like, think of that person who got on the bus and was like, man, and just being mean to everybody. They must have went through 100 things before they got there. And it's not an excuse to act like that, but it is a signifier for me to be like, damn, I feel for that person. And they could wish me ill will and they don't even know me, but I feel for them. I sympathize with them and I wish better for them as a human being. Like, let's just, if you're going to look at it from a righteous perspective, like, I just want the best for you. I don't know you, but I want the best for you because the collective best is best for all of us. Otherwise you get people doing foul things to people or, going into a public place and trying to hurt people. These things all happen from lack of compassion, or now as I'm a parent for 7 years, knowing that what a parent does for their kids can change the world for the better and for the worse, because every person that's out there in society ruining shit is, if you look at their history, it's most of the time it starts at the parents, So it's like, we got work to do. If you're a parent, you got work to do. And if you're a person without kids, you just have to go out into the world and look at it slightly with some sympathy. And it takes work. It's easier to just go out there and be like, fuck everybody. But if you can find a way to look with some sympathy for your fellow human beings, for me, it just makes the world a better place to walk around in.
Yeah. I think you're right about that. It's challenging. Sympathy and empathy. Actually, I had this argument with my grandma the other day because she told me that sympathy was between shit and syphilis in the dictionary, and I wasn't going to bring this up as you were saying that. But the reason being is because she really pushed to teach me empathy. But I don't think it really matters in the situation which one you use. They're both better, and they're both like a necessity to the alternative, which is like feeding into it and allowing these people to trespass on you or you to trespass on them because they're having like a tough time. Like, I think looking at it with like any sort of sympathetic or empathetic eye is definitely the way to go. Man, people really be like taking each other out. And when you said like, it's, it isn't the kids or like it's environment and it's genetics, right? I guess that's kind of like the psychological standard, right? Where 50% of one and the other, and it, based off your life experience, it could be, varied and different. But the long and short of it is like, we are a product of both our, genetics and environment, AKA our parents. And so, yeah, it's our responsibility to make sure that, things do just happen and people really do have experiences outside of their parents. But, I don't take it lightly. Like, I do not take that responsibility lightly at all. Like, it's way too.
It's tough. It's definitely one of those things that, like, it's a cliche to say, like, you won't know until you're there. But for parenthood now, 7 years later, I'm like, no, that's real. I had all my homies and a bunch of my bandmates in the early Mayday days, like, have kids way before I had mine. And I thought it was something that it ended up, like, I thought it was like, yo, what? Come on, what do you mean, man? It's just, you're good. Like, keep working, keep being in the band. Why can't this person do anything anymore? Like, it's just their kid. Like, it can't be that hard. Like, and I wasn't that like crass about it, but I was definitely like, that was like the core of my viewpoint at that point. And when I had kids that first year, and in my defense, I had twins, but still,
right.
Regardless, one or two, that it made me realize, like, yo, this is harder than I could have ever imagined. Like, yeah. I got to call all those people that I might have ever gave some grief and be like,
I'm sorry.
My bad. That was my bad, because I really didn't understand the situation. And I wish I would have been a little bit more empathetic, because apparently sympathetic is not cool. So, it's like, yeah, it's it's rugged. Yeah, it's rugged. So it's been cool though, because I had my kids when I was 35. So 34, 35. And I'm really glad I waited until I did, because I was able to get a lot of stuff done and do a lot of living before the kids were born. But it's also, when you get to your like late 30s, 40s, you feel like you've seen quite quite a great deal of things, and you know a decent amount of things if you've been on,
Yeah.
on your job. And when you have kids, it flips your perspective on a lot of things that you would never have seen coming. Like my relationship with my own parents, my siblings' relationships, like the way that people operate in the world. I look at it differently now, knowing what it's like to raise a kid and seeing what a relationship is like with you and your kid. And it's blown my mind, and for the best. The first few years, and I was very open with this with all my homies, and I've mentioned it on other interviews, like I found the first few years of parenthood to be incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
I was like, do we, not to be taboo about it, but like
What
nothing
have we
personal.
done?
What exactly? I was like, have we made a mistake? Like,
Yeah.
what is this? This is crazy,
Yeah.
And there is nothing against my boys, because like I didn't really
No.
know them then. They were just vessels that required a lot of work, and I didn't feel the whole like I loved the baby since the second I saw it. Man, like it's cool. Like, yeah, I get it, but like I need a connection through your personality, through who you are. And like I can just look at you and see that you kind of look like me. That ain't gonna really convince me that I need to love you forever. You know what I mean? Like that's a
Right.
little
Yeah.
vain. That
Yeah.
concept's a little vain, and if you
Yeah. I
really
got a
boil it
cousin that
down.
looks like me too, but we ain't really.
Yeah, like when they're babies, they're cute. I give you that.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
cute.
Yeah.
But to develop a bond like that is like, yo, you my person. Like I
Mhm.
love you, and you're empathetic, and you
Yeah.
you have these different things. Like that to me required growth, and communication was a big one. That's how I function with all the regular people in my life. So having these kids that couldn't communicate, those first 2 years like was difficult for me. And then when it started to turn the corner on like 3, 4 into like 4 and 5 really was like golden era for me. Now they're 7,
Absolutely.
and they're like my little homies. I pick them up from school. I'm like, yay, we're together again. Like it's the best,
Yeah.
It's
Oh my
the
God,
best.
it is.
I love it now. It's not easy now. It's still hard. It's still
Yeah.
work, but it's way more enjoyable for me now.
Man, I appreciate you saying all of those things. I know that there's a lot of people out there. Parenthood is the most ratchet and the most blessed I have ever felt in my entire life. And much like you, I waited. I had my first son when I was 25, and that is not early by any stretch of the imagination. People really do be having kids at like 15, 16, 17. So
Oh, yeah.
25 with a career and a house, I was like, man, I waited forever. Then I had another one later on, which, he's sweet and everything, but like, I still was like, how the heck did I do all that at 25? Like, I don't know, man. I probably could have waited another 10 years and been like fine with it, because it's a different piece of my soul. Yeah, it's a different piece of my heart.
Yeah,
And
and
it's a different piece of
you're different. Like you're
yeah.
different than you were at 25, and like
Mhm.
you've changed a lot. So it's like, oh, you kind of looking at it through your lenses now, or when you had your next kid. But honestly, yeah, like even the age part of it is only partially it, because age or not, you still just changed in general. So you're looking at it differently. So it's wild. And I give mad props and mad respect to all the people out there that have had kids in their teens and early 20s and even mid 20s, which is kind of like back in the day considered to be quite the standard. But
Mhm.
I give super props to all those people, because one of my best friends had his kid when he was 15,
Yeah.
and it blew my mind. And he had not only a very healthy relationship with his kid. Like his kid turned out amazing. His kid's a grown ass man now, and
Right. Yeah, totally.
and they have a great relationship. And I'm like, yo, this is like proof that you can do it, because having a kid at that young of an age it puts you against the odds that you're gonna have a great situation.
Heavy
Like
pressure.
you don't really have the tools necessary. So hopefully you have the support system and you have the wherewithal and to do the right thing. And hopefully your kid also cooperates with that plan and does the right thing himself. So it can be done. It just requires a lot of work. And I don't think I was ready for that at that age. So I'm glad I waited personally.
Yeah. The other relationship that I think changed for me was like, I always thought people were really weird. I'm like, man, their relationship's weird. Why? Like, why is that dude like always out fishing? Or like, why is she always yelling at him like that? Or like, you know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah.
then when you have kids, you're like, oh, I totally get it. It's not even like no shade to like women, or no shade to do. It's not even that. It's like they actually love each other. That even though they're yelling at each other and he wants to go fishing all day long, like they actually just like trooped it out for the last 3 years, just staring at the side of each other's faces. Like they really just need this now. Like it's just like
Yeah.
I missed all of that, like, until I had kids. I didn't understand people's like marriages or anything like that. It made me like appreciate some of my friends' relationships. I was like, shit, okay, yeah, you guys really do ride or die. Like, never mind the
I've
streets,
been,
these kids are wild. Like,
oh my God. Yeah. I've been with my wife for 18 years now, and we've been
wow,
married for 10.
wow.
And the first few years of the kids being born was the peak of the strain we've ever experienced. You know, most of the time, me and her are real chill. We get along real well. We don't fight. None of that. We're like, it's chill. But if we were like the closest that I ever felt like, yo, like just frustrated with everything in general and just feeling the strain in our relationship, it was those years. Like nothing will put more strain on our relationship than parenthood. I agree.
But now you must just look at her with love in your eyes, like, baby, we did it.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's definitely better than it was, because like what I tell people is like, if you've had a kid, like, you know, and if you're there with your partner and you have a kid, then, you know, when you're tired, they can tag in and so on and so forth, vice versa. But with the twins, and it was our first kid as well, so we like didn't have any experience, and then on top of that, we had two of them, so we never got that like, babe, will you do this? It was always like, we gotta go do this because we need it. You get that one, I'll get this one, and we're always on call all the time, you know. So luckily for us, though, we had her in-laws. They live across the street from us, literally.
Oh, wow.
And they had twins of their own. So we had that it takes a village thing. I learned about that firsthand. Like, without my in-laws being as cool as they were and as being as helpful as they were, and they still help us to this day, my mental health wouldn't have been where it is right now, and my career wouldn't have been, it would have gone quieter for longer, because they helped me to be able to work and helped. I couldn't have gone on tour and left my wife with the two babies. Like, I don't think I would have had that in my heart to be able to do that. So with my in-laws around to help out while I was on the road, it allowed me, I took maybe like I think I took like a 7-month or 8-month break from the road. First time I went on the road, the kids were like maybe coming up on a year, but just not quite. And I could have never done that without my in-laws' help. So definitely it takes a village.
Man, there's so much. Yeah, it takes a village. And I think we need to get back to that culture. Like, when I was growing up, you know, we would be dropped off here, there, and everywhere. And like, that's cool. But like, so is also like hanging out with your nan. You know what I mean? And I think we need to get back to that. And I think I'm feeling a little bit preachy, because I think I just answered like a big problem that I was having in my own personal life about like what was happening and like what we need to be doing. But we need to be like getting back to that space. Like, you need babysitters, go find the aunts and the uncles and the grandparents and all of that stuff. Like, you know what I mean? People need to lean on each other a little bit more, because the kids get to have that experience, like those moments. I mean, my grandparents are I'm blessed they're still around, but like, they're getting older, right? And it's like, for your kids to be able to have that in their life, like they're 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, those are the years, like those kids will remember all of that stuff.
Yeah. I think it's important. And it before we had the kids, even though our in-law, well, my in-laws lived across the street, we had grown like quite separate in that time. You know, like, we'd see each other, but it wouldn't be like, it'd be odd that we didn't see each other more, seeing as that we live so close. But they were doing their thing, we were doing our thing. I was working a lot, my girl was working, whatever. But the kids really were the catalyst for bringing the family unit back together, because they obviously wanted to be around the kids. We were happy to have them help with the kids, and then it kind of like reignited the family like unit and brought us together, which was like an unexpected side effect of it all. So that yeah, I think it's definitely something that's useful and healthy for everybody. And it's something like could be forgotten in a way. I think the only way that's been helpful is that by the modern era anyways, and how rough things are, is that it's pushed a lot of people to do like family style living now, because everything's so expensive, that you're getting more like multi-generation families living together. So in a way, like, I feel like there's more of that now than ever, for the wrong reason, by the way, but still,
right.
There's going to be a healthy side effect there, is that the family unit will be there, and the kids will, like you said, benefit from it so much more.
Totally. I was saying, my grandparents are getting up there, and I was like, how do you tell them like you're planning on moving in because you're worried? And I was like, I mean, I am worried, but I actually need somebody to watch them when I podcast. So like, I mean, I need them. It's not even really like I'm trying to like help them out. Like, I actually kind of need, you know what I mean? So like, speed is yourself for sure. But I think, yeah, you're right. The economy is pushing us to like really rely on each other in that way, which I don't know, it could be a good space that we're growing on into in 2026, 27. I don't know. Like I think that some good things will come from that. And the relationships that you were talking about at the beginning, like with your dad being, a few and far between, quality over quantity. I understand that. A lot of us do because our parents, we grew up in the era where like separation was a little bit more prevalent. But to be able to get back to that where you get to like hand down the experience, hand down those those trades and those passions and those things, like I think that will be, like you said, it'll be, smashed together a lot faster now with the way that it's going, right? Like we don't really have a
Yeah.
choice but to rely on each other for that kind of stuff. So it'll be
Yeah, we
interesting
need
to
it.
see.
We need each other. We need each other. So it's like we gotta answer the call. Like being in Miami, I'm exposed to a lot of Latin culture, and
Mhm.
my family is British, and my mom's family's British, my pops from South Africa. So like I came to Miami and just got like basically embedded into Latin culture, and in Latin culture, that's already a thing. Like it's already like yo, abuela lives here. Grandma's there. Like we take care of grandma when she gets old enough. We're not putting her in a facility. Like she's here at the crib with us, and that's
Yeah.
just part of it. So you see that a lot in Miami. And I always thought that was cool because then I would see some of like, some of the other white families that live down the street maybe not doing that. And I'd see a lot
Right.
of older white folks just living like, and I'd see my neighbor who was like 80 something by herself. And I'm like, damn, it's messed up, like, where's her family? Like she needs them. She needs somebody. So it's like, I hope to be able to do that for like the elders in my family. And then I hope that there'll be family around for me when I get to that point and pay it forward for me when I need some help.
Yeah.
That's all you can hope for really, because it's a blessing to have that and not everybody gets it.
Yeah, no, amen to all of that stuff. What are some of the values that you want to leave behind? Like, what are some of the things that you're like, okay, we did this, we got this amazing catalog of work. We're gonna leave that for the boys. But what are some of the things that you want to make sure that obviously they probably know, but you know, we don't know.
Man, I think I don't know if it's even by the music at this point. Like it is by the music, but it's a lot of times like the the thing I take the most joy in is when we go on the road and we'll
Mhm.
do a show. I'll meet people at the show, and then either on site or maybe afterwards online, they'll tell me that they were surprised that I was so like down to earth and like chat with them, and or I'll get people be surprised that I'm there kicking it with them at the bar and just talking or whatnot, and I have fun breaking that notion that because I do music or because I have some sort of like minor notoriety that I wouldn't want to be there talking with them, or that I wouldn't be interested in what they got to say. So like Miami growing up was a little bit of an unfriendly place for me, where it was like some of it was language barrier because there's a lot of Spanish here, and
Mhm.
I'm not fluent in Spanish, but I always felt like being British, in my roots, that like I just wanted to be friendly and wanted to be cool with people and wanted to be just down with people. And I've seen it a few times in hip hop, like growing up. Murs would be one of the ones too that we went on tour with Murs for when we did the Murs Day album. And I was like, this is the friendliest rapper I ever seen in my entire life. Like, this is crazy. Like, he knows the people that he met at the bar. He knows their life story. He could tell it to you, like recite it after just hearing it once. He's interested in people. He's got respect and admiration for everybody that comes to the show. Like, literally never seen I've seen only, a handful of artists over the years that were really dialed in like that. Tech Nine is also very similar. He's a people person. I never seen him turn down somebody or be rude to somebody. Like, so I always just felt like, more than anything in the music, like just showing people to be like a righteous human being and just be kind to other human beings shouldn't be so fucking hard, like,
No.
well, let's just do that, like it's
Yeah.
easier. I know it feels easier to be shitty, but it's really easier to just be cool with everybody, like, and I get it. People challenge you and people do dumb shit all the time and want to rattle your tree or whatever, but it's just easier to let that roll off your back and be like, that's their problem. I'm sorry for them, whatever. Keep it moving and be cool and peaceful with one another. So like that's something I always preach. I try to put it across in the music. I also have gotten a lot of comments from people as we gone on the road about like the music that we make. You could consider a lot of our catalog, Mayday or Me Solo, as like
Yeah.
moody music or just a lot of our concepts and topics are quite dark.
Mhm.
So um I kind of appreciate that people feel like when we tackle that stuff, that's what they want to put on, and it makes them feel better, because if they're going through a dark emotion like that, it feels better to hear someone talking about it and relating to that music, rather than it feels to listen to a song about singing in the rain or whatever. You know what I mean? Like they want to hear someone that's going through that too. They're not looking for an escape. Some people would prefer an escape, but I think a lot of people resonate with our music because we're talking about things that they're experiencing on their day-to-day life. And it started to become cyclical, because we'd go on the road, and then people would, I mentioned it to you before we went live, people
Yeah.
would start unloading their their issues and their problems with us, because they felt that they knew us from listening to the music. They felt we understood them from our concepts and our music, and they would want to tell us like, yo, this particular song saved me during a real dark time in my life. You know, I was suicidal, but there was a line in this song that really pulled me back from the edge and really rang in my head. And those things I've never taken lightly. After 20 something years, 10 years of really like touring the country plus, I'm like, every time I hear it, I'm like, this is amazing. This is wild that we're having this connection right now over lyrics, over music, and relating to one another and feeling like you're not alone in the human experience. Like if someone remembers me as like a small, even just a fractional part of that experience, then I'll feel like, okay, cool. I'm happy with what I left behind.
Yes, 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 yes.
That's the
You
goal.
are
That's the goal.
so freaking humble, and it's like oh, that's so beautiful. 3,500. I mean, you're talking one tour, people were lined up, you took the time to hang out, and we're not like, I mean, therapists be charging like 250 an hour for this type of stuff, $500. And the fact that like you not only like care about the people that are out there, experiencing that with them, giving them the time and the space, but actually like, behind the scenes, you guys, he really does talk about this stuff. Like, I mean, you didn't really have to say any of that to me back there. But you really did say like it's a privilege to be a part of that with them. Like,
Yeah. And then it kind of inspires us to go back, and I'll go back from tour
right.
and take some of those stories and kind of put them in the bank and form them into some emotion. Like, man, somebody was really telling me that, they had a struggle with this, that, and the third. And then how can I basically put that in the meat grinder and then put it into a record? And, it'll inspire me to come back with something else. So it's kind of like one hand washes the other, and so on and so forth, because they'll be inspired and touched by the music we made already. And then the conversations that I have with people on the road and the experiences I have meeting people in every state of the country or going up to Canada, I take that back with me and go back into the studio and do it again. So it ends up creating like a really cool ecosphere.
Yeah, totally. That's really neat to hear from like the artist perspective. And I don't want to pit any of the artists that you've worked against each other or anything like that. We don't need to be doing any of that stuff. But just out of curiosity,
Mhm.
like who is somebody? I mean, well, I could probably guess, but what are some? What is like? So who are some of the artists that you? I don't want to say forever cherish, but that maybe you appreciate. I don't know how to word this without people being like, "Are you fucking serious?" Like.
It's all good. It's all good.
Like, who is somebody that you're like, yeah, that person doesn't have to be like your bestie, but the one that you vibe the most with the music, or you're like, yeah, that really came together the way that I would like to see it, because we know what sounds good, but I'm curious for you to know like who you
You
enjoy.
mean like as a fan, like me as a fan of other artists?
Yeah.
There's a few. In terms of hip hop, there's when I was really young, well, not really young, but like I guess when I was a teenager,
Mhm.
Aesop Rock was like blowing up, and he signed to LP's label, Def Jux, and he
Yeah.
had an amazing run. He had an EP called Daylight, and that song blew my mind. And I got really into his stuff, and my early material, you can hear a very strong Aesop Rock influence.
Totally.
And I loved what I loved about him was that he never did what we were talking about before, where it felt like he's never gone like and did something that wasn't strictly for him.
No.
Like this is my art, this is what I do. He never stepped outside of his zone and did something that wasn't what he really wanted to do. So I always respected it. And I think he's carved out a really dope career over all these years, and a really loyal fan base. And I just always respected his art. I rep his gear all the time. I listen. I almost got him on a record a few years ago and it didn't pan out, and I was really bummed. And I'm like, still gonna try again. I'm reload and do it again. But so Aesop Rock is one. Pharoah Monch is another MC that I've always looked up to, that I just thought was like an innovator as far as style goes, and just like doesn't have the biggest body of work, but just technically has got to be one of the most impressive rappers of all time. I'm a big De La Soul fan. When I got into De La Soul, I just like, I was late to the party, but once I got there, I was like, yo, this is amazing. You know, like this energy, especially remember that like I came in listening to gangster rap. So when I got to De La Soul, I was like, what? You could do this? Like, you could be like this. You could be kind of like, have a different quirk to you, and it's cool and it's acceptable, and it also works. So it was, even though I was, years late, catching up to their catalog was dope. I got to work with Pasta Noose. I got him on The War Within, and that experience was really dope. And then I got invited to go to Drink Champs when they did Drink Champs in Miami. And I was in the room when they were talking about their label deal and trying to get all their music back. And I hadn't met Dave yet. And rest in peace, Dave, who just recently passed away. I got to meet him and complete the cipher. And they just always been super gracious with me. And Paz and Maceo have always been super cool with me over the years. So that was one where it's like I idolize those dudes and like have looked up to those dudes since I basically picked up a pen, and got to meet them all and had great experiences. It was one of those like, yes, I met my heroes and it was awesome, and got one of them on my record. So like that De La Soul, I like very much treasure for multiple reasons, that the last obviously being that like I got to be in their space. Yeah. And it was awesome.
Oh God, congratulations on like seeing what you were going to do, following it through to the point where like your passion and your skill actually put you in the same space as people that you idolize. Like that is I don't know, I don't want to say that's it, but that's got to be pretty damn close, like you really did that.
It's definitely, as music has like as I was saying before, like it's the music business has changed so much, and now it's getting really hard to just like stick it out. That when I get up like in the morning and just the fact I can make and create things is still like gets me out of bed. But I have definitely been able to like work with a lot of amazing artists and tour with a lot of amazing artists and just be in the same room as some of my favorites over the years. And I would say 90% of those experiences were great, and then you get your 10% that was just either a bad day or just they're not the greatest person to be around. But I've always like lucked out and had pretty good experiences most of the time. And I do take that part of it like I don't take it lightly at all. It resonates with me to the point where I'm like, well, money might not be great in the business, or, it's very unpredictable. Like if this can like sustain me, but like the experience I've had with people as like over the music, and then my peers and people that I looked up to growing up, my idols, I got to like fraternize with them in whatever way. And that means a lot to me.
There's the paycheck.
It all started with being a fan of it,
Yeah, that's really cool. And bring me back, not to like take it back like for a second over to in the other direction, but like what was the origins of Mayday and how did that come about? Like, is that
Mayday? Mayday basically started as a 2-man group. So it was Burns, who's the other MC in the group, and Plex Luther, who is the original producer, co-founder of the group. He was the tall Irish dude with the big beard. And him and Burns, they were in 2 separate groups in Miami, and basically they came together and they were talking about, let's, do a project together. They were friends since high school, and they said, they wanted to basically do like a distress call for, at the time, they said like the music was getting kind of stale and the energy, and people they were real political in the beginning as well. So it was like, yo, we want to ring the bell and ring the alarm, like when to call out injustices. So that's why Mayday became the name. And at the time when they formed the group, I was fans of their separate endeavors. Plex had a group called Algorithm, and Burns was in a group called Evolver. And I was up in Hollywood, not knowing them, but had been exposed, as I mentioned earlier, to the Miami music scene and being like, this is amazing. These guys have records. And I was looking up all the artists and who's who, and I'd already stumbled onto them as a fan. So I was buying their records, and I went to an Evolver show, and I watched Burns and Uday do a show together, and I was like, this is amazing. Found myself standing next to Plex, who's 6'4", by the way. I'm 6 foot. So I was like, yo, Plex, and I worked up the courage, and I told him, look, yo, that remix that you did for this record that they're performing, it was fire. It gave him that, he was like, oh man, thanks. Cool. So I had a brief meeting with them then. And then the thing is, like, my very persistent ass at the time was everywhere. I was not going to let you not see me. Like, I was there at the battles. I was starting to pop up and do performances. So they kept seeing me. And so we got cool from that. And then by the time that I went and did MTV MC Battle in 2003, I had become friends with them just because they, oh, Rek, what's up? Oh, what's up, Plex? And I hadn't worked with them really per se yet, but I was like in the scene enough for them to know me. So when I went up to New York to do the battle, I slept on Plex's loft floor, crashed it on his floor for a night while I was up there because I couldn't really afford lodging the whole time.
Been there.
Yeah, you know the vibes. I was like, let me crash on your floor. And then, he played me some beats, and I was real stoked to be even hearing his beats, or maybe get a chance to rap on one of his beats. And so fast forward, to make a long story shorter, basically after that contest, I got a record deal with this independent record label in Miami called Southbeat, and they were signed to the label shortly after I was. So I was signed as a solo artist. They were signed as a 2-man group. Okay. And they experienced success real early. They had Groundhog Day blow up on YouTube and got 2 million hits in 24 hours, which in those days on YouTube was unheard of.
Crazy.
Yeah. It was a big deal. So I kind of experienced like their success from the sideline and was like, yo, these dudes are making music like I want to make. We became friends over those couple of years. My project never came out on the label. Unfortunately, I got shelved. The label ended up going under. They just didn't sustain themselves long enough to make it happen. And maybe a year or two kind of went by. And in that year or two, we grew closer and closer, making music together. But to the point when 2009 hit, and they were like, look, we want to expand the group. We want to bring in some more instrumentalists, and we want to bring in another vocalist. And would you want to? And at that point, it was almost a no-brainer. It was like, of course, man. Like I'm in.
What the heck? Yeah.
I've been here the whole time.
Totally.
So it's like, it was a very cool experience for me because I already respected their music and what they did, and we become such good friends. And on top of that, as I mentioned to you earlier, like I had kind of stopped singing when I got into rapping young because I was like, it's not cool to sing, and they kind of helped me tap back into that I had like shunned away. And they were like, yo, you should I showed them something that had some melody in it. And they were like, yo, you should do more melodic stuff. You should sing more. And they were basically pushing me into putting more singing on the records. And then on top of that, I had never sung at a show. Like I had never done that. So they were pressuring me to like, yo, let's go do that at the improv spot. Let's go just jam, and you should sing more and try some different, techniques. And they helped me find the voices that I would end up like really getting comfortable with and using on all the catalog to follow. So they very much helped unlock another part of myself that I wasn't really utilizing. So, since then we expanded the group and got signed a few, we grinded really, really hard those next couple of years. And by 2011 is when we got our deal with Strange Music.
Congratulations, man.
Appreciate
it. Story. I love hearing that, especially the dude, like, we're here for the dudes. When we registered originally, it was men's mental health and music. And like to hear guys like supporting each other and pushing each other and like, man, you can do this. And like, I believe in you, but have you heard this guy? Like, we got to get him out there, dude. Like that stuff to me, like, it's so fucking cool. Like, it's just, and it shows that's when we experienced it, I think, at its like peak entertainment, peak experience, peak everything, because all of that passion and drive, there's something about, and no shade to the girls, I know I'm going to hear about it later, but there's something about like testosterone that does that like, yeah, when it comes to the entertainment industry, we can feel it. It's like palpable, and women do it too in their own ways or whatever. But like, yeah, it's no surprise to me that you guys were like cheering each other on and like being persistent. And there was like some,
Yeah,
tenacity in that story.
it can easily get like competitive, real
Mhm.
competitive and cutthroat, and people pushing each other down so they can get further along. And I luckily, like, we didn't really experience much of that. And also I was very cognizant to establish like some ground rules going into the group. I said, look, I'm definitely gonna get into the group, but just remember that, like, I'm gonna continue to want to do some solo stuff because I was already a solo artist. So I hadn't really experienced like, I hadn't gotten to put out an album yet because of what happened at the record label. So I put out my couple of underground things here and there, but not a full like official record. So I was telling them, like, I'm basically still going to want to do some solo stuff, and I kind of prepped them for that. And what was cool is you often hear about bands like breaking up because of things like that, or it
Totally.
causing drama. But we
Mhm.
we we didn't have that. The guys were really dope about that. They were like, cool, do what you got to do. We'll help and support in any way we can. And they allowed me to continue to do that without any issues and without any, like, passive aggressive drama. And it helped me to develop all those like things that I utilized on future records on both Mayday and my solo stuff. So without that support, like, if you run up against some static there, I could say some of those records that ended up happening might not have happened.
Wouldn't have.
Mhm.
They wouldn't. Yeah, you got to support each other, man. People got to support each other and love each other and push each other. And it's amazing what happens when we come to that space. Like you said, a few minutes ago, like you can get into those places where people kind of tear each other up, or like shut whole projects down over like ego, or even where you're standing on the stage type of shit. Like it doesn't have to be like full on ego. It could just be like where the light hits. Like it doesn't have to be that crazy, and it can turn into one. You know what I mean? And like it turned into like a whole thing. And so yeah, that's really cool that you happen to like fall into a space where like you guys all were there for each other and made it happen, because it rings true. Thick, man, thick. Yeah, cool for being a cool human and finding other cool humans so that we could all experience it from like the other side.
Amen. Likewise.
Yeah. Felice says, "Are we getting another?" Oh, thank you, by the way. Sorry, I just like.
It's all good.
Felice says, "When are we getting another Rec 52?"
Oh man, that year nearly killed me. I did like I had my kids in 2017. In 2018, I went real quiet. I didn't do a solo record. And we only put out a Mayday album that year because the guys were so like determined and focused that they kind of arranged and helped like put all the pieces in place. And then I just had to kind of come in when I could find time. Like, when the kids were sleeping and I was on an hour of sleep or whatever, I would find time to go in and fill in blanks and we recorded South of Fifth. But when 2019 came back around, my kids were turning 2. I was like, yo, like I need to make up for lost time. Like I need to go super hard. Like I'm going to do a freestyle every week and release it no matter what. So I did 52 freestyles in a week.
Wednesdays,
Dropped them
right? Like,
dropped them every Rec Wednesday.
Man, come
And
on.
then we did 125 shows that year. So we were on the road. We did a Tech 9 tour in the spring. We did a Mayday tour in the fall. I went to South Africa in the summer to do a documentary with EFN. So it was a busy year already. But then on top of that, I was doing this like I can't miss a day, or miss a week rather, 52 in a row. And it was a lot of fun. It really like sharpened up like my writing abilities. Like I was writing 64, 72 bar verses like easy, like no problem. Whereas like sometimes after a while of like writing, you go in and you're like 16. Oh, I got to really work on this 16. But I was just putting it out fast because I was so sharp from just writing every week and writing so much. So it was a challenge, especially going on the road, because I couldn't really get very far ahead. It was like sometimes I was doing it the night before, and being like uploading it that morning type of thing. Like it was rugged. So it was tough, and it was a very, very hard year for me for multiple reasons. Like I definitely burnt out at the end of that year, but I'm super glad that I did it. And it's something that I definitely want to try and attempt at some point again in the future. My dream is to do it and have it be 52 originals, because out of the 52 that year, majority of them were like beat jacks. It was just like, oh, I love this beat from whoever, and I'll just put my verse on it and call it a day. And it was easy because I could just grab a song from wherever. But there was only a quarter of like,
you act like that's easy. Like, I mean, I guess, but like
Well,
Damn.
easier to source quality because you can just go out
Right.
there into songs that already work or songs you really love and then just rap on them. Whereas like when
Yeah.
you're working with original stuff, you have to source the beats from producers, find the ones you like, get them mixed. You're already dealing with tracks that are mixed and already tried and tested. You just
Yeah.
got to pick and choose which ones you like. So it makes it easier in that regard. But I would
Mhm.
love, my dream is to do a 52 run of all original stuff. That would be
Yeah.
my dream. And one day I think I might be able to pull it off, but maybe when my kids get a little older.
It's like cult classic status type of shit. 52 weeks of freestyle every week for 52 weeks straight. I mean, that holds some serious. I don't even care. I don't care if you pick them. I don't even care if you didn't pick them. I don't even care
Yeah.
if like you use the same beat every week. I don't even care. It's that's wicked crazy. Like that's wicked crazy.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting experience and a challenge, and it was cool. My community that I have on Patreon, we call it Wrecking Crew. They got me this really dope plaque that I got on the wall in the studio that basically like said thank you for rocking like and doing this legendary run of 52 and 0, and they presented me with this plaque at the end of the year, and it was a very triumphant feeling, and it was cool. It was one of those things where it was like an exercise in like you hear artists talking about consistency all the time, and there are varying levels of consistency, and this was like an intense like a consistency intensive of like you really want to go, let's see what you can do when you go 52 in a row consistently. Everyone knows every Wednesday they can come get another one from you, and it was dope. I saw growth, and I brought in a bunch of new people, and it also just like people mention it to me still 5 years later, 6 years later.
Yeah, it's super cool. I think some of us we make New Year's resolutions, and then I don't know. My son brought up Quitter's Day the other day to me, and he was like, "Oh yeah, like everyone, did you make it past Quitter's Day?" And I was like, "I'm not resolution years, but like like whatever. But like most of us don't make it past whatever date that happens to be on. I think it's the 22nd of the month or something. And so to do it like for a year, I mean, yeah, you got to be using different. Well, go into different parts of our brain. You're always using different parts of your brain, but
I was gonna do a dry year from alcohol this year, and I already quit. But I did a dry I did a dry January. But you know what it was with me? It was that I was gonna do it in support of my sister, who said she was gonna do it,
okay.
and then I was like, I was thinking about doing it too, because I had read an article where like there's certain ages that you hit where you age exponentially. And I thought 42 was one of them, but I was off by like 2 years. I think it's actually 44.
So you don't have to dry out for a minute, then you're fine.
Yeah, and basically I said like I'll just do it with you, because I was like really not stressing alcohol at this point. Anyways, I got a really healthy relationship with drinking at this point. It's very moderate. And then what I found was like, because my relationship with it right now is so moderate, the restriction was conflicting with my vibe. It was like, I don't really drink that much. So in those odd occasions when I do want to have a drink, like saying like, no, I'm doing a dry year was a little problematic for my energy. It was like, I don't need it's like putting a limiter on when you don't need a limiter. It's just like, it felt weird. So I told my sister, I'm like, you gonna be mad if I bail on you? Like, and she was like, nah, do your thing. Like, it's cool. Like, I was happy to have you rocking with me, but it's not really a giver. It's not gonna make or break me. I was like, all right, cool. You can just tell everybody your bitch ass brother didn't make it at the end of the year. And she was like, oh, all right, cool. She's my little sister. So she was like, all right, I love that.
Yeah. That's perfect.
I already quit. So shout out to all the quitters this year.
Yeah. You know what, though? There is like a science behind that too. Like, and we don't have to get into it too much because we're getting into it a little bit tonight. But so even to be like, hi, my name is, and I'm in recovery. Like that mantra isn't super healthy, like to be telling yourself that all the time, and not saying that you need to be like in AA or anything. Clearly that's not this and whatever. But like, yeah, to like put those limits on it. Like if it's not necessary and it's like, I don't want to say that it was even that heavy for you, but like just everyone out in the comments and out in the world, like, like once we start doing that and it's like negatively impacting like our day or our life, then it actually overthrows like anything that's negative from like the alcohol or the smokes themselves.
Yeah, like it defines you almost in a way. And it's like I'm almost like, if I tell you I'm taking a year off alcohol, your initial thought is, wow, you must have been drinking a lot. Yeah. Why'd you need to take one? And I'm like, wait, no, like it almost felt like I don't even drink that much for real now. So like to do Then I was like, nah, you know what? Like this ain't. I was like, yo, I'm a rock January because dry January is a
Dry
thing.
January. Yep.
I'm gonna do dry January just to
Mhm.
reset the clock. And then, I might end up just like I go to Classic Album Sundays in Miami every once a month, and they play like. They pick a couple albums, they put them on these hi-fi systems, and it's amazing. And I like to have a little sip of something when I'm there. And so I was like,
Totally.
I might break it for that. So, yeah, it's just like I decided to not do it. But also, just for context, when my wife was pregnant, because I gotta give myself my props. When my wife was pregnant, we had a conversation, and she was like, would you do the solidarity thing for the alcohol?
Aw.
And I was like, of course I'll be able to do that. And we was joking around. She was like, you wouldn't be able. I'm like, yeah, I would. So I did 10 months when she was pregnant. And then when I
Good.
got to the 10th month, I was like, wait, I'm already 2 months away from a year. So I did a year when she was pregnant of no drinking. So that was my last time I did the like dry year, So I did
That's cool.
complete one. I've completed one.
Yeah, that's cool. And if that's like a little bit more of like a love letter than anything, right? It's like, because she obviously wasn't quitting because she had a problem. She was quitting because she was having babies, and y'all were
Yeah,
having
yeah, yeah.
babies together. So, you can chill on it for a minute too. That's no big deal. That's really
Yeah,
sweet.
yeah. I was like, yo, you're carrying
Yeah.
our kids, like the
Yeah.
least I can do is just stand with you and do what you're doing, in terms of not drinking. So yeah, like I did it already. And it was tough. I went on Drink Champs with Tech Nine during that period of time, which was
Right,
the
right.
hardest thing I ever had to do because Nori was giving me the business because he was not reacting well to this news that I wasn't going to be drinking
She
on the
wasn't.
show.
She wouldn't even give you a pass for that. I feel like I probably wouldn't have even asked for permission for a pass for that. I would have just been like, "Listen, it was
Well,
one
I mean, if
wild opportunity."
I mean, in their defense, like Drink Champs is a show about drinking. So it's like all the
Yeah,
guests go and drink with Noriega and EFM when they're on the show, and it's all centered around drinking.
it
But
is.
and Nori showed us a lot of love. Like he was one of the first like hip hop artists that showed Mayday love when we were on the come up. He
Mhm.
like guested on a couple of our songs. He went in the video and did all that. This is a platinum selling artist, like so he gave us a lot of love. So there's definitely a bit of familiarity there where he's like kind of he'll jab us a little bit like, yo, little homies from Miami, like I know y'all. And so I think it was partially that, and it was in the early throes of Drink Champs when Drink Champs really blew up and got to the level it's at now. They've had so many episodes and so many guests that there's been guests that just don't drink. But back then I felt like it wasn't as common to have someone on the show that didn't drink. It was almost like bad luck. So like
Mhm.
I had to go on there and sit through like a little bit of harassment. So I told my wife, I'm like, yo, you see how much I love you? I
You
went on
see
drink.
this?
Yeah, I went on Drink Champs and didn't drink. I don't know if I'm the first person, but I'm definitely one of the ones who didn't drink on the show now.
What a good husband you are. Yeah, I guess
I
that'll
try my
always
best.
be a thing. Yeah, that's heavy. You could like, yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, you don't have to throw it in her face all the time, but just in those little like loving
Yeah, yeah,
moments,
yeah.
right?
Like, what? You're not gonna
You know.
make dinner tonight? I went on Drink Champs sober for you. Like,
Yeah, totally. Oh, that's really cool. I really appreciate you coming and hanging out with us tonight. It's yeah, it was a super nice Tuesday for me and everybody else in the comment section. I do want to say thank you to everybody that's in the comment section hanging out with us. There was a lot. You had a couple of heavy fans in there tonight that were asking questions and stuff. So like we see you and we hear you. And everyone that sent stars and all of that. Thank you guys for rolling. Is there anything that we should know about? I mean, you're pretty heavy on the social media stuff, and I'm not about to run a song through Pinecase because everybody knows where to go to find them.
for
So we
sure.
can, you know what I mean?
For
But like,
sure.
is there anything that we should be like kind of looking out for?
Yeah, I'm definitely active on all social media. Whenever I work with an artist and I'm like, yo, what I'm gonna tag you on this platform. What is it? And they go, oh yeah, I just don't do that one. And I'm like, what? Like for me, it's like, well, I'm gonna go wherever people are. And if there's
Yeah,
some
yeah,
people on one of these platforms, I'm there. So
yeah.
I'm on every platform at Wrekonize or Wrekonize Music. We just dropped a Mayday single like a week ago called Better Days, maybe a week or two ago. And we have a very special Mayday release coming up in maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And
Okay.
I got Sunny Winter 4 out right now, my solo EP with Sharp Sound that is on Bandcamp right now exclusively or on Patreon. And it's coming to streaming in the not too distant future as well. I got a slew of releases planned for this year. I'm not doing weeklies, but I'm definitely like trying to like best my personal record for how much music I put out in one year. So there's a lot of music coming. And we do have this Wreck and Crew community on Patreon that you can come join. It's patreon.com/Wrekonize. And that's like kind of the place where we like congregate now. We got a Discord server. I do weekly live streams. I preview all the music. I do special editions of the music, merch, all that stuff. So if you do dig the music and you want to come and get a closer, look at it all or be part of the community, come holler at me over there.
Yeah, there you guys go. You know where to go and find them. Don't sleep. Well, I mean, I don't have to tell nobody not to sleep on this, but from my personal
tell them.
Yeah. Yeah, don't sleep on Wreck. Listen, I just had a really intimate moment. It was just me and a pot of tea and some family today, and it was nothing super crazy. But there wasn't a time where I felt like I needed to turn anything off or on or move things around. It was like this nice vibe that just went through the house, and everyone enjoyed themselves. I mean, I actually took videos, of babes and everybody else just like doing their thing, and it was like from the time that the coffee pot went on to the time that the tea kettle went on a little later on. Anyone that knows my schedule knows that that's like a 12 hours. Like, you really do know what you're doing when it comes to music. And I think that it is the absolute manual for the kids that are, hanging out, want to know where to start and where to end up. And I think that you're a beautiful example of human being. And I can't say enough. So, once again, don't sleep on Wreck's music, because it is in there, and it's fire would be an absolute understatement. But thank you so much for being like a philanthropist and an innovator and a lover of technology for us to all enjoy, because it's big.
I appreciate that greatly. I do appreciate the kind words, and I'm happy to still be around doing it. I've definitely lost friends out of the music game itself. I've lost friends out of their out of their life very early for a multitude of reasons. So when you were talking about hitting on those notes too, it's something we've all gone through, especially as we get older, as we're in our 40s and 50s. Like, we've all seen friends pass away or just less seriously just leave, like kind of the art that we all grew up loving together. And I'm happy to just still be around and still doing it. And it's allowed me to meet so many cool people like yourself. So to continue to do that and use that as a vehicle to like, experience life and meet more people is just like all I can really hope for. And hey, if I make a few bucks along the way, cool, that's great. But just those two things, if I can get through and it drives me through the rest of my life, or at least, whatever time I'm here, that would be great. That would be great for me.
Oh man, thank you. Yeah. Once again, it's Tuesday night. Is Wrekonize hanging out with us over at Pinecase, the humble giant himself. My goodness, you are an absolute beast, and we adore you so much. You guys go and check him out on all platforms. And before we sign off, I want to make sure that you guys know where to go. So we're going to run through this one last time, and I promise before the end of the week we'll get a video up for it. But #988 will take you to the place where you need to go if you guys are feeling the pressure and you don't know what to do, and you want to call that national suicide hotline. It's #988. Of course, Pinecase, we have our warm line, so it's 250-289-3948. And that's just like, if you guys, the #988 is too heavy, and you just want to text and you just want to blow off some steam, or you just want to, bitch about your wife, or your boyfriend's driving you crazy, or you kick somebody's dog or whatever, and you don't need to like get the cops or anyone serious involved. We got professionals hanging out 24/7 to make sure that they're always going to be there for you, so you don't have to do any of this stuff alone. You can also ask for recovery information, resources, shelter information, or anything else. So go ahead and hit that up. It's 250-289-3948. Calco's already got it in the comments, so we appreciate her for it. Thank you, darling. And your naloxone kits. Not everyone's experienced this, and I feel like we might be on the upswing of the fentanyl epidemic. But if you guys need your Narcan or your naloxone kits, you can also call that number, text that number, and ask them for it. You can also reach out to any of your pharmacies, any of your ERs, and just ask them for harm reduction supplies, and they will hand it over. You can ask for 1 or 2 kits. Just remember, right now it is the winter time, so it doesn't work quite the same. You're probably going to need a double dose, which means maybe 3 or 4 at this point. You can't overdo it, and you can't give it to the wrong people. What I mean by that is, if somebody is drunk and you think they're overdosing and you're going to hit them with Narcan, it's not going to hurt them. So go ahead. If you guys want more details, you can go ahead and hit us up at 250-289-3948. You guys stay safe and take care of each other. I think that's a wrap.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, man. Take care.
You too.
we stay strong. We stay
The
strong.
further you take my rights away, I'ma run to it, refuse to hear my voice. Speak loud when I spit it, but you don't get it. You just wanna be a side critic. See somebody else sowing hate in the side of the road with it. Now how would you feel standing on the sideline and watch the color of a nation deteriorate over time? The flag real high, but compassion 6 feet below. Now you're searching for that justice that decided to never show. Deny my place, I'm back with a trace. Keep up the pace, tight lace, game face. Get back in the race. Whatever they did could never be undone. Every dark night ends with the rising of the sun. Squandered every wealth that's built from the mud. Squandered every wealth that's built from the blood. Squandered every wealth that's built in chains. Stolen from the ancestors running
With
through
the
my
strength
veins.
of 1,000 lion and the strength of 1,000 giant, we stay strong. We stay strong. With the strength of 1,000 elephant and the strength of 1,000 tiger, we stay strong. We stay strong. We stay strong.
I can see, run to the light at the end of the tunnel winner.
We stay strong.
I can't breathe, we're gonna get oxygen without the justice system.
We stay strong.
And I know, gotta keep my head together.
We stay strong.
Don't doubt me, please don't doubt me.
We stay strong.
Tell me how can we be strong if we still shooting? Tell me how can we be strong if we still looting? Tell me how can we be strong if we still hating? Please tell me now, please.